It's what I'm calling the rideshare exit plan. Pretty much just a couple steps, a little system that I put together to help guide you guys to just being in a better financial position versus if you didn't do this at all. The start is just to pick your destination. None of this matters unless you understand what your goal is and why you're heading to that destination. For me, I want to be a full-time YouTuber. Someday I will be done with Uber and Lyft. I don't mind driving, but if I didn't have to be an Uber Lyft driver, I wouldn't be. I just like the flexibility it gives, and it pays well now. The pay is decreasing, but for what I need it for getting out of debt, it allows me to work 70 hours if I want to, so I can get out of debt quicker. I might have been paid more per hour when I was a district manager, but as a salary employee, you don't get overtime. No matter how much you work, you don't get more money. So it wasn't ideal for what I needed. My overall destination was to work a job so that when I start a family, I can be involved with the family, right? And I learned that I like YouTube, and I'll start different channels once I'm debt free. Maybe I'll cover news here, but I'm gonna be doing different things. I already have a diabetic channel. I'm diabetic. I'm not making videos on it now because I don't have time, but I will once I'm debt free. But that's my destination for now. My destination is to create a life where I can make money doing the things I love. And it's harder to do that when you have debt, when you have payments. So that's my destination. Right? So figure out what your destination is. In fact, let me know what's that thing that you always wanted to do, but financial life has just gotten in the way. Let me know what that thing is. I want to see it. And then the next one is what I call mile marker 1. And that's, you got to create a budget. Nothing else that we're going to talk about, nothing else that I'm going to suggest matters if you don't have a budget, because a budget tells you down to the penny how much money you need to make a month. And like, once you figure out how much money you need to make a month to survive, you start to learn how quickly you can achieve some of these goals. So I'm gonna show you my actual budget for September. Simple. I'm gonna update it. So this is not the final version. This was the quick version I threw together today. I'm gonna add like a section for like business, for your rideshare business, so you can start making a budget for your rideshare business. I just don't know how I'm gonna do it yet, but this is basic home business. This is the budget for my house between my wife and I. All right, so this is the real numbers here. Real numbers, real things. So this is the mortgage. Our mortgage is $963. That includes the insurance. Groceries, our budget is $275. That does not include like consumables, like toiletries and things like that. We have a different line item for that. You'll see it later. But $275. We've had to increase this a little bit. Food has become more expensive, and we used to have a eat out budget. We killed it. We said, all right, no more eating out. Sometimes we still do, and there's line items where we'll draw from for that. But generally speaking, we put less into eating out so that we can put more into groceries. So $275, it's just the two of us. We're very good at what we do. We go to Costco once a month. She goes to Costco once a month. I need to start going with her. We'll get chicken in bulk, and then, we just keep it very simple. We've eliminated stuff from our diets. We keep it very simple just for now. We're not trying to live like this forever. Once we're debt free, it's going to give us the room, the financial breathing space to, chill out. We'll move from intense to intentional. So we'll dive into it. So for gas, $150. This is for her, not for me. I don't necessarily budget gas for share. I think when I do budget it, I'm going to look at the average, right? How much am I making? And on average, what percentage of that am I spending on gas? And then I'll create a spreadsheet that dials in those numbers. We'll eventually. So that's gas. Electric is $140. This is something that can change. We're just kind of estimating until we get our bill. So over here in the C column, if the bill actually ends up being $150, it shows you if you're over or under on your budget. So it says under $11, pops up there. So that's pretty cool. I put that in there. Insurance, $117. This is only for her car, not for mine. Mine is about the same, but I pay my insurance through my business account. I have a personal checking account that I just labeled business account. It's not an actual business account, but I like to separate my business expenses from my personal expenses for tax purposes. You can write off insurance, I believe. You can't write off gas, but I still like to differentiate the two. We have miscellaneous. So the miscellaneous helps with unforeseen things. So if something pops up, maybe we forgot to put a budget in. We're going to go visit my brother at his football game. He plays for the Pirates, ECU, East Carolina. And, maybe we'll end up having to eat out. This is where we can throw that under miscellaneous. So it just gives us a little bit of breathing room to not mess up our entire budget because we didn't foresee things. Trash, $98. We know that's what it is until they tell us it isn't. We have personal spends. I get to spend $75 freely. We have conversations when we spend large amount of things, but we want to have some variability in our ability to like just spend. Like, so most of mine goes to food. I need to do it less, but when I'm out there driving and if I didn't pack a lunch or if I'm working longer than I anticipated and don't have enough food, this is where that gets pulled from the budget. Or if I want to go buy a gadget or something, this is where it comes from. Internet, $61, lawn care, 60, consumables, toiletries, paper towels, things like that, $50, YouTube Premium, $19, Amazon Prime, $16, Crunchyroll is where I watch my anime. I like anime, $13, and her iCloud is $1. So our total budget for September is $2,211. All the money I make after that should be going towards my student loan. We haven't been paying off debt now, but we have been saving because we were trying to see if the Democrats would pay the student loans before elections. I don't think it's going to happen. And I'm not saying I want it to happen, right? It would have been nice personally. I understand the larger ramifications of what could happen. I understand both sides of the ball, but whatever. We instead of putting the money into the loans, we just stacked it up, put it in a savings account. And I went to her this week and I said, hey, let's just go drop it on the student loans. So when I reveal my net worth next week, I'm going to show you all of my accounts, all of my debt, all of my investing. And I'm going to start doing that every stream. Like, I'm going to start talking about how much money I paid off this week, every stream. And that's going to help me like stay motivated, stay on top of it. And that's also going to help me be transparent. So yeah, so the way this budget works is, you put in what you like at the end of the month when you're looking at it, you put in what you actually spent and it'll tell you, and it tells you what you have left over. So mile marker 1 was the budget. And I just kind of showed you how my budget works. So once you have your budget, now you need to go and get a starter emergency fund, right? Starter. The key word here is starter. This isn't going to be a long-term emergency fund. This is what you're going to be to help insulate you from things that could go wrong, like immediately. So when I started my plan, I used the Dave Ramsey baby steps. His starter emergency fund is $1,000. I think that a rideshare driver's starter emergency fund should be $2,500. For the most part, that will cover your average mechanical expense, unless it's like a transmission or engine. But it's also to make sure you have enough if you get in an accident to cover the deductible from Uber and Lyft. I super recommend getting your insurance, even if you have this emergency fund. But in my accident, the $2,500 did come up. I don't want to give too much information. You'll have to watch the full video for that. But it did come up in the whole process. And I think that at minimum, you should have that, because what would have happened is if my car wasn't totaled, but the cost to fix the car was higher than the deductible, they would not have started on the work unless I provided the deductible, which I could have. Yeah, I could have. So I think that at minimum, that's what you should have. But I want to kind of like talk about that a little more. I want to start talking about the pit stops down here. So I understand things don't always go as planned. So we have pit stops for car maintenance, car replacement, and life. If you go to the mechanic and your mechanic lets you know you have an issue, you should be talking to your mechanic about how long can you go with this issue as safely as possible. So just because you have your starter emergency fund doesn't mean you dip into it the second something happens. If something happens to your car, like your tire treads are wearing out, but they're not gone, they're still safe, but they're getting close to the end of life, you don't go and turn around and use your emergency fund to get new tires. You put that in your budget. You start planning for it. You start trying to get the money together to pay for it. When the roof needed to be replaced, we had some time, and we didn't just reach into the emergency fund. We budgeted for it. We cut our expenses. We want to only touch the emergency fund, super emergency. Like you were paying no attention to your car, and the engine is about to go, and you have to get it done today. Like that's an emergency. But you knowing you had a small oil leak for months, and you let that small oil leak grow big without doing something about it, that's something that you could have fixed over time. So I really do want to differentiate between the two. And we're going to move on to mile marker 3. So mile marker 3 is to pay off your debt. I use the debt snowball method. A lot of people will say the debt avalanche method is better. This is the debt snowballs, where you pay off your smallest debt, and then once that's paid off, you take that payment and you roll it into the next debt, and you keep doing that. And what I found is that I think money is more personal. Like, I think money's more psychological than it is math. The math behind money is pretty simple, but we still fail at it. And it's not because of the math, it's because of the psychological aspects of money. And if you have a credit card, $1,000 credit card, and you pay it off, that's a quick win. And that helps build some momentum. And then the payment that you would have been making, here's a good example. I had a car loan initially, paid off the car, paid off my wife's car. My car loan was like, what, rounding up $300. Her was like rounding up $400. So once those car payments were paid off, we now have $700 extra that we can throw at other debt. So it adds up over time. It gives you that quick win. That it gives you that drive to go and do this. The avalanche method is where you order your debt by interest rates. But the thing about that is, like, typically your lower interest rate debt has a higher number. So you're gonna be spending a long time paying off that higher number. And you're gonna feel like you're not going anywhere, like you're a hamster in a wheel. And so I don't recommend. Like, imagine if I were trying to pay off my $90,000 worth of student loans first before paying off my car loan. If I did that and I got into my accident, I'd be sitting there with no car and a car loan. So I strongly recommend paying off your lowest first. If you want to jump to paying off your car first, if you want to skip all those other bills and pay off your cars, I wouldn't be upset with you. That's not how we did it. But especially if you have a high car payment, and you definitely don't want to be caught in an accident with a car payment. You don't want to be caught with Uber and Lyft like paying you even less than you are now with a car payment. Just my day-to-day like emotional level, like when I'm getting bad rides and when it's a slow day, I don't worry as much as other drivers do. And that's because their car is on the line. Their home is on the line. But because I don't have that car payment, because my expenses are lower, the amount of stress I feel as I watch Uber and Lyft take more money away from drivers is a lot less. I get a lot of flack on here how I don't attack Uber and Lyft a lot, and it's because honestly I don't care about Uber and Lyft. I don't think the government's gonna come and save us. I think that if you're waiting for the government to fix Uber and Lyft, you're doomed. There's some markets where it works, but it takes a long time to implement laws. And then I don't think the government is ever a good financial plan. For the quality of life I want to live, relying on the government to fix my finances, it's not, I don't see that working out. It doesn't matter who's in office, Republican, Democrat. I want to create a financial life to where I'm insulated from them. When they make a bad decision and it affects me or affects people, I have enough like sustainability in my finances that it's irrelevant to me. Like I want to live my life without people interfering in it, and so you just don't wait for them, right? Don't rely on them. So you gotta do it yourself. So that's the payoff debt. So mile marker 4 is the 6-month emergency fund. So once you're debt free, you want to build up 3 to 6 months. If you have a W-2 job or 4 job, whatever, if you have an actual job that's not independent contractor, you can do 3 months. If you are a self-employed person, you want to do 6 months. And this would be your base. Like you at this point, you'll want to increase your living style. You want to become more comfortable. We move from intensity into intentionality. And it's okay if you're spending more, you're eating out, you have a budget for date night. That's when that stuff becomes okay. Like, we're not trying to live like we're poor forever just until we're not poor. Your 6-month emergency fund should be your basic 6-month emergency fund. If you are living at a lifestyle of $5,000 per month, if you lose your job, and you say in this budget I can cut it down to 3,000, you want 3,000 times 6. That's what you want your 6-month emergency fund to be. And then the mile marker 5 is transition. That's at this stage where, as far as I'm concerned, you don't need me no more. You don't need advice from Tristan anymore. You're at the stage where you can do Uber and Lyft if that's what you want to stick with, while having enough margin in your finances to start paying for the things that gets you to that thing that we talked about earlier. That where, if you want to become a doctor, now you can go to school because you have that financial margin. Your bills aren't as like constrictive as it was before. That you want to start just feeding into that transition period. Like, what do I need to do to become that thing that Tristan said that I should now focus on at this stage? And that's where I want everyone. If you want to be a private driver long term, that's how you're gonna try to retire. If you're at mile marker 5, the likelihood of you being successful at that will be better than if you have debt, or that you don't have your emergency fund. So that's where I want everyone to be. I think that's where a lot of us will find a lot of happiness again. We won't feel as much like it's a part of the rat race, and that's where we're gonna like. I had to realize this for myself. You don't really know if the decisions you make are because you're broke or not. The job that you have now, did you do it because you didn't have money? You know, the food that you eat now, is that because you don't have money? Once you have that ability to pay for certain things and doors starting to unlock, you'll realize that the decision making you were making before was because you had a lack of. But because we spend so much time living in that scenario where we lack, we just think it's ingrained into like our personality, but it's not. And I want to get to this stage so badly so I can see who I am when I am at this stage. But let's talk about the pit stops. I have some pit stops down here, and it's for car maintenance, car replacement, life. At any point while you're trying to do the system, this you're at any mile marker, something can happen. Let's not pretend like it can't. So if you have car maintenance coming up, you would want to pause where you are in that step, and you would want to save up as much as you can and take care of that maintenance. If you want to get to a point where your regular maintenance, like oil changes and things like that, you're budgeting for that. If you need to replace the car, pause. Like if your car is over 100,000 miles, I think you should, pause a little bit, pay your minimums on your debt. We're not paying any more extra towards it, and then start putting money aside in case something were to happen to your car or if you need to get it replaced. I think $10,000 can get you pretty far with an Uber and Lyft with a car. And then honestly, there's life. If you're trying to have a baby, I would pause. Not pause having a baby. I think that no matter where you are financially, if you want to have a baby, go ahead, have your baby. We need more humans in the world. But you would pause, stack up as much money as you can. Make sure your wife or your baby mama gets home healthy from that hospital with that baby, and that like nothing crazy is going on. You're just stacking up as much money, and then once like everyone's safe, everyone's home, everyone's healthy, you take that money you stacked and apply it to wherever you are in the steps, right? If it's your starter emergency fund, if it's your pay off debt, if it's your 6 month emergency fund, that's what I would recommend. I'm gonna try to become more detailed with the system, but I think it's a good place to start. If you're kind of just running around like a chicken with your head cut off and you have no financial plan, I think this is a good place to start. You can also check out Dave Ramsey. He has a podcast. He does 3 hours of content Monday through Friday, like Mondays 3 hours, Tuesdays 3 hours, and it's people calling in and they have questions about money, and eventually you're gonna hear something that's similar to what you're in, and it gives you something to listen to while you're doing rides.